Okay. Very good evening, everyone, and happy good Purnima to all of you, and respected Professor Ravi Poovaih sir too also. Professor Ravi Poovaih sir is a senior professor in the Industrial Design Center, Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay and Mumbai. And sir is presenting. Welcome to all of you in this program, 3-month part-time certificate course on fundamental of social design under the project of Spark through the Ministry of Education in collaboration with a Department of Applied Art, Faculty of Visual Art, Banaras Hindu University, Maryland Institute, College of Art, Baltimore, MICA, and Michigan State University, Michigan, USA. Today's session is the topic is evaluation of design at educational institutions, and under this, Professor Ravi Poovaih sir will cover the things. He presents a picture of design education, the way it has evolved in India and abroad, and whether the different education models have necessarily played a role towards social inclusiveness. The lecture starts with Bahuas and continuous into featuring the different learning models adopted by key design school abroad before NID and IDC came into existence. In the process, participants will become privy to the circumstances under which the important design schools around the world come up, including key design education initiatives taken by these design schools. It should also give the course participants an understanding of whether design had indeed tried to factor into being accessible and inclusiveness, and whether India did things differently in the larger context of social design. Now I'm again welcoming Professor Ravi Poovaih sir and request to him, sir, please start the session.
Oh, thanks so much, Manish. Okay, so without any, gap, let's go ahead with the talk. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen. Just a minute. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to make it. Is it full screen for you?
Yeah, sir.
Yeah, it's fine, right?
Visible, sir. Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, so I'm going to be speaking on how design evolved in institutions around the world. I'm starting with the design schools. Okay, so the start point is that. Okay, so let's look at the history and its relevance to the topic for you all, which is social design, and how social design was a very important factor which kind of got integrated into the philosophy of the design schools. And especially in the context of design schools, which are evolving in countries like ours. Okay, so it has a big importance and an important role to play. So let's start. Okay, so there are three key issues I'm going to address. One is how was design taught? Okay, how is it different from other subjects being taught? Okay, how is it different from, let's say, chemistry or physics or philosophy that is being taught? Okay, so there was a difference in the way design needs to be taught. Okay, so how this was addressed by different thinkers and doers. So that's a point of interest for all of us. Okay, what was taught? If you have to become a designer, you have to make somebody skilled in this activity of design. What would you teach them, right? That's a big question mark, okay? We might take it for granted, okay? But consciously, that has also evolved over a period of time. And do we need an environment to teach design? Can it be taught anywhere, or are certain ways of the space having it around makes a big difference to the way design is taught? Okay, so fundamentally, one is about the teaching, one is about what is being taught and where is it being taught. So these are the three questions that we'll address during this presentation. Okay, so we go back to 1900s, okay, almost a century back. Okay, so there were two thinkers who profoundly influenced the learning systems itself and the attitude to learning itself. Okay, so one is John Dewey. Okay, he professed that the way a student has to learn, okay, is has to be a choice that has to be made by the student. Okay, so you have to give this freedom to the student to make and choose and then deliver that. Okay, so that is probably one of the best ways to actually make it learn. Okay, because of the convenience of the system, it was very easy to have it one way. The teacher is the guru and the Shishya will take whatever comes to him. It was a one-way interaction. He imitates or he kind of, without much questioning, he would actually listen to that, and that's how it was done. And he actually questioned this whole notion. He said that the students need to be given the choice of deciding what the future is in a very democratic way. Okay, so that was profoundly a very nice thought process. Okay, the second was from Maria Montessori, and she, kind of did this way of learning, which was through discovery. That means you experience, experiment, you explore, and then you, based on that, you actually end up learning. Okay, and she said the best place to apply it was actually preschool children when they come, just come into learning, because the way one learns when you're very young is by trying out. Okay, it is not by totally listening to somebody, but by making mistakes. This is how you learn. Okay, so at the background of these two profound thoughts was this you know uh, chance choice which was given to Walter Gropius. He was an architect in Germany, and he was given in charge of two schools. One was a fine art school, and one was an art school. And he had this, job of having to revive these two schools. Okay, and you have to look at it. It's 100 years back. Industrialization had come in. Okay, and yeah, one felt the need that the products of the industrial era needed to be designed. Okay, so he had in him is this thought: what if I combine the two schools together? Okay, the lessons from the art school combined with the lessons from the craft school. Okay, so craft school is very practical. Uh, Art school is very experimental. You have to always think of new ways to do things. What if I combine these two philosophies together? That means combine the essence of an artist with that of a craftsman. And output of whatever gets done, if it is useful to the industrial society, nothing like it. Okay, so because he had the chance to think like this, he also thought of a new school for it. Okay, and he called it as the Bauhaus. The school was designed by him being an architect. He used modern materials to do it. You can see it. He used a lot of glass, so you can see outside. Steel, because you just need concrete to, you know, for the, support of the floors. And this is how it looked. You had one bay on the far corner, which housed all the workshops with very big windows. And towards you is the studios where the students sat, and the tall building is the hostels, and the connecting building is where the faculty had their cabins. Okay, so they kind of looked at it as a very symbiotic relationship between, faculty and the students and the studio. Okay, so this was started in 1919, but interestingly, the school had to change places thrice. This was in Weimar, then it went to Dessau, and then it went to Berlin at the end of it. And 1933, okay, because of the political situation, the school had to be closed down. But it questioned a lot of things which are of big importance to us. And especially, we have to thank these schools for having shown the way towards how to teach actually design. So students produce their own creative designs based on their own subjective perceptions. Okay, and arts, crafts, pottery, photography, typography, architecture, they're all taught together. So if you look at it, it was a 3.5 year program. The half-year program, which is a basic course, it's an introduction into study of materials in the workshop, study of form. Okay, so that took half an year. And for 3 years, they studied construction, tools, nature, materials, and applied it to clay, stone, wood. These were the materials, and then they applied it to producing objects. Okay, so this was roughly the course structure if you look at it. And let's look at some of the teachers who were there, not all of them. I'm covering about two, three of them. Uh, Johannes Itten, okay, painter, Swiss. Okay, and see, always been a radical. He's dressed up like a monk. Okay, and look at his statements. And he taught color there. He who wishes to become a master of color must see, feel, and experience each individual color in its endless combinations with all the other colors. Very nice statement. He also practiced what he taught. Okay, so he was a painter. So if he was talking about color, he used to experiment with color. And play becomes joy, joy becomes work, work becomes play. Okay, again, a very nice statement saying that you have to learn to experience and enjoy what you're trying to do. Yeah, so if there is no joy in that, then it will show in the work that you actually finally produce. Okay, he wrote this book on color, which is still a classic book on color. Okay, so let's go to Paul Klee, a Swiss German artist. He was also teacher there. Again, look at his statement. One eye sees, the other feels. Okay, so feeling and emotion are very, very important for learning of design. And his statement for the elements of design. Here, this is a line, is a dot that went for a walk. Okay, the first one is an active line on a walk, moving freely without goal. Walk for a walk, stake. Okay. At the same time, the second one is a line accompanied by a complementary form. Okay. Third one is taking circles, having a lot of enjoyable time moving around, right? So it's an adventurous line if you look at it, figure four. Okay, so he also, yeah, was an excellent painter. He taught basic design, so you can see the elements of design profoundly in his paintings. He painted a lot of nature with the sun. Okay, so that's his series on this. Third is Kandinsky, a Russian painter. Again, he came to, so here you can see the staff of Bauhaus, Kandinsky with his wife, Paul Klee out there, and Gropius at the far right corner. Okay, that is beautiful, which is produced by the inner need, which springs from the soul. Okay, so he connects design to spiritual. Okay, and he even wrote books, okay, concerning the spiritual in art, and yeah, his experimentation with the basic elements. Okay, and he had come from war-torn, Russia. Okay, where there's so much of blood and war, and these kind of reflected in his paintings. See, the diagonal is a very, very important element here. It's very, very dynamic. Makes use of triangles that do very sharp, pointed triangles. They're always poking at something, penetrating something. Okay, so much of violence in his or activity in his paintings. Okay, this was something which was in his spirit, so he expressed it. Okay, so if you look at Bauhaus, right, what did it do in terms of its contributions? Okay, first you can say it changed the way design was learned. Okay, pre you know to this era was you went and studied under a guru, you kind of imitated what he did. This is the way design was learned. Okay, this is the way architecture was learned. This is the way medicine was learned. Okay, so but here Paho said that no, students are given the tools, the materials, the freedom to explore and experiment. And through this experimentation, you discovered yourself. Okay, you discovered what is right for that material. Okay, so that is a big takeaway from this particular school. It also embraced the modern movement. Okay, which meant that modern movement was using less material, less things to do. Okay, so that is a very important criteria because it brought in efficiency to a certain extent. Okay, and the third was that it was not an art school; it was a school which actually connected with the industry, which catered to the needs of the industry. Okay, so Bauhaus did that. So, in terms of pedagogy, in terms of the embracing of the present times at that point of time, and also connecting to a societal needs here. That is, say that you have to become useful to the industry which is coming up there. At this point of time, there are also profoundly nice statements which got done. Both are from architects, Van der Rohe, who said that less is more. That means you should try to use less material, less visuals, if you can say the same thing. And form follows function. So form is something which the function represents. Okay, so there's a big connection between the form and the function. Okay, so if it is supposed to turn, then the form should look like it's going to turn or it's turning, right? If it's a musical instrument, it should actually denote music. Okay, so they said the form should be, reflective of what it's supposed to do. Okay, so these are some of the products. This is a brewer chair done during Bauhaus time itself. See, it uses new material. It uses tubes, steel tubes with canvas for sitting. Okay, this is a little later on, Pantone chair using fiberglass. Beautiful, it can be stacked with on top of another. Okay, and Suryanagi using pressed plywood, beautifully done. It's the same piece which is symmetrically kept together, and it forms a beautiful stool. Again, a table lamp, again 1936, Bauhaus. Okay, Braun, which took a lot of takeaways from Bauhaus. Dieter Rams was the designer out there. You can see the Braun watch done, almost now 50 years back. Yeah, it looks so contemporary. And of course, these are cups by Massimo Vinelli. Very modern stackable cups suited to producing it in plastic. Okay, and Bauhaus interestingly had an Indian connection. Okay, and Rabindranath Tagore had won his Nobel Prize and invited to Germany, and he went to Bauhaus to have a look at it. In fact, just a couple of years after Bauhaus had opened up, and he convinces them to send an exhibition to Calcutta. So, in fact, just the first exhibition of Bauhaus was in fact held in Calcutta, in 1922. Okay, and then as a memorial to that, they again in 2013 they had another exhibition of the Bauhaus in Calcutta. Okay, so the big question is, did Rabindranath Tagore get influenced by Bauhaus? Why didn't he bring the philosophy of Bauhaus to here? Because you don't see that in when you go to Shantiniketan, right? Shantiniketan is much more, bent towards crafts than producing things for the industry. Of course, he felt that the inspiration for India should come from the East and not from the West. Okay, so to a certain extent, I think they were influenced by the modern movement in terms of paintings, but not in terms of design. Okay, so I think that's how it didn't really, happen in Shantiniketan. Okay, one would have expected that to happen there. Okay, but it didn't happen. But of course, 33 Bauhaus had to close down. Okay, but its people went all over. Many went to different parts in Europe, and you can see many went to US. Okay, so if you look at it, many of the very well-known colleges. They set up a new Bauhaus in Chicago. IIT Chicago came in. Okay, MIT, Harvard Architecture School, Yale University. So a whole host of universities, and you'll see that they're all headed by faculty or students from Bauhaus here. So Bauhaus, in some sense, spread all around. Okay, and its influence became really profound in many places. Okay, and many schools have continued with that philosophy even now. Okay, so one of the schools, again, which came post-German political crisis, okay, in 1953, was the Ulm School of Design. Okay, it was done by two people, one who taught at Bauhaus and another is a student of Bauhaus. Okay, and what Ulm did, which Bauhaus did, was that they embraced, logic, uh, systems, science, theory. They integrated theory with practice. Okay, so that was a very interesting combination that they thought of. Again, beautifully designed campus. Uh, okay, and you'll see that that's done by Max Bill, who was a student at Bauhaus. In fact, he made sure that each and every element within the school is designed, including the tables, the chairs, the switches. You can see it here. This is the studio space at the old school. The other founder was Ing and Altasia. They were graphic designers. Max Bill was more of a product designer, architect. Okay, all of them painted. Okay, and if you look at the curriculum, it's actually what we have as in design schools right now, not so different. They brought in the name of product design, visual communication. Instead of architecture, they had called it industrialized building, information design, and filmmaking. And if you look at their structure of academics, suddenly psychology, philosophy, economics, sociology, and politics become very, very important. Yeah, because they said that the grounding of human thinking should lie in this, and then you connect it with the core design subjects, with in the center being the basic course on understanding the fundamentals of design. So you can see here Altasia with the students. Okay, good art inspires, good art motivates. Uh, he was also profoundly, very good designer. He contributed towards the symbols and the signage for the Munich Olympics. That's illustration for a storybook, logo for Lufthansa. It's still the same logo after so many years, right? It's almost 100 years and we still use the same logo. Okay, so that's his outputs. This is Max Mill here, architect, artist, type designer, product designer, student of Bauhaus. He says he made the Mobius strip, without knowing what he was so fascinated by that, and he made sculptures, and so much of experimentation happened after he discovered that. Okay, so he set up furniture here, designed in the school. That's a sculpture out there using the Mobius strip. This is a basic exercise in color that you can see. Ulm School also published all the exercises. So you, in the center of those publications, invaluable publications of student and faculty work. They thought of complex systems like this joinery for wood. Okay, that's a kettle out there. Okay, so Ulm School showed the way by using technology, by using science as its foundation. Okay, and in this whole thing, we have to mention one school, which was a totally experimental school, which came up in the US. Okay, this is after Bauhaus shut off. Immediately after that, this particular school, it was called as the Black Mountain College of Design. And most interesting part of this school was that it took experimentation and exploration as its motive. Okay, so they not only did design, but it was done alongside art, music, and poetry. Okay, and they adopted John Dewey's principles of democratization as well as holistic learning, right? So it was an interdisciplinary approach that combined manual skills and thought process in a democratic, communal, and exploratory structure. This has very big significance to social design because social design spaces work in this way. You know, it is democratic. It has group activity almost all the time, and you have to try out what is the best for that particular situation. If you look at it, essentially, this was a social space for design that they had created. Okay, and it had great students. They are if you Google them, you'll find that each one has contributed so much to their own fields. John Cage, for example, for music, Buckminster Fuller, he tried his first dome in this particular school. Uh, you know, Experimental architect. Okay, there are writers out there. There are filmmakers. Okay, there are painters. Okay, so it was a very experimental school which did this. And if you look at their curriculum, okay, it's very community based. It's very social. So building, living, they have to live there. Art, science, dance, music, poetry, theater, do it, construct, build, and act, etc. Okay, so they educated the whole student, not just his hands or head, but the heart also, head, heart, hand, through interdisciplinary studies. It's very community-based education. They even did farming in the school to, get vegetables. Okay, they held events. At the later stage, they even built a new building for the school. The students and faculty built it. Interestingly, there were no grades, no tests. The students decided which courses to take, when to take, and what concentrations to do. And just by being in the school, they would actually get the degree, you know. So it was a very radical school. Of course, it was too radical for the times. Okay, this kind of radicality, they failed to get funds to maintain the school. Okay, so after a while, they had to shut it down. But I think a lot of lessons learned that this is the ideal, scenario for a design school. But of course, it doesn't have the business model behind it to make it happen. But yeah, a lot of learnings from that. So I'm jumping to Rhode Island School of Design, okay, in the 1980s. Okay, if you look at it, it's a glance at their weekly schedule. Okay, in terms of one semester and then another semester, spring and the fall semester. Okay, so for example, in a week, Monday, this is for graphic design. Okay, Monday is design one, Tuesday is spatial dynamics. Okay, Wednesday is history of art and visual culture. Thursday is design in words, and Friday is drawing. Okay, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And in the next semester, if you look at it, Monday is history, philosophy, and social science. Okay, Tuesday is history of art and visual culture. Okay, so there's one and two. Then comes drawing again. Okay, spatial dynamics again, and design again. Okay, connected with an open elective which they can take it in between the semesters. So now, interestingly, one day you spend on a particular subject, okay, which is so different from how chemistry, physics, or any other subject is taught in universities. They usually have periods for it. Okay, you go from one place to another or one class to another to attend it. Here they said one, and we in India have further worked on it. What we have done is that we have a weekly module. That means if it is spatial dynamics, we do it for a full week instead of one day. Yeah, so these are all interesting learnings. Why one day and not a period? The reason is very simple. Okay, it's actually one day because the student has to come, get immersed in the problem that one solves, and he has enough time to solve that problem by the end of the day. Okay, but if it is not one day, but just a period, it's too short a time to solve a problem because you have to do the problem, make mistakes, correct your mistakes, okay, and do the alternative ones. Okay, this is how you learn. So you need more time for it. Okay, so Carnegie Mellon University, and again a very experimental, good school. Okay, so they looked at it in another way. They said that let's give the choice to students. Okay, let's have the focus on products, communication, and environment. So I think they can do product design, communication design, or environment design, or they can combine these two together. Okay, they start with exposure to all three these areas, and then it branches off into two of those areas, and then into one of their areas in the fourth semester, fifth semester, sixth semester, seventh, and eighth. You can see that one can actually make a choice between the products or communication or environment and weave their products and projects like that. Okay, so again, quite an interesting, So you choose your design track and you choose your design focus. Okay, and if you look at it, student two has taken communication and environmental designer with a focus in design for social innovation. They also interestingly, introduced this term called as social innovation. Okay, very long time back. This is almost around, close to 20 years back. Yeah, early 2000s was this program started. Okay, and very new university now. I think it's about 7 years old, 7 or 8 years old, which came up in Singapore in collaboration with MIT USA. It's called Singapore University of Technology and Design. They have thought of a different structure. They've said that the core subjects are maths, physics, chemistry, biology, the natural world, and the humanities. Okay, so they are the foundation courses. Okay, and in the second semester you introduce them into design. Okay, and in the third semester a little more of the design comes in. Okay, so these become actually the foundation, years. Okay, much different from how we learn basics of design. Okay, and then they have four pillars. Either you can go into architecture, or product design, or systems design, or information design. Okay, backed up by management, entrepreneurship, social sciences, economic, humanities, and arts. Okay, so you have the foundation and you have the pillar, and you can actually, specialize and graduate in one of these disciplines. Okay, so again, very interesting way of looking at it. Okay, now design has been combined with technology and humanities to again give a very holistic way of looking at learning of design. So let's look at some of the schools of design. Art Center College in Pasadena, very well-known, design college. It's a private design college, very influenced by Ulm and Bauhaus. In fact, the building very much looks like the Ulm School, spread in the, in a wooded place. Okay, a lot of glass overlooking outside, cuts across a highway. Okay, and you'll see that, yeah, classrooms with flexible spaces. Yeah, so cut to another school, Glasgow School of Art in UK. It was housed in a very, iconic building built by, designed by Macintosh. Okay, but unfortunately, due to a fire, the building got destroyed. But they managed to, keep a bit of it as a reminder of the old building. So the new building is built around the old building. Yeah, so again, intention is to create very flexible, open, congenial spaces for interactions, right? That is how design should be learned. Yeah, so you can stick things on the wall. You have large tables to sit around and discuss, okay, which can be moved around the classroom into different configurations. Yeah, and yeah, and let as much of the outside come in, because outside is actually the inspiration. The nature is the inspiration. So if you can allow the nature to come inside, it will influence your work. Okay, so these are the, mandates through which is done. We also beautiful examples from our own country. This is the Center for Environmental Planning and Technology in Ahmedabad. Okay, designed, of course, by architect V.V. Doshi. Okay, open to sky, it's exposed brick with concrete, large spaces, beautifully done. It has spaces for you to sit around, chat around. You know, you feel like you're in this environment which leads to creativity. Yeah, so there are a lot of spaces which are in the campus, which leads to discussions, people meeting with each other. Okay, so that's a very important thing in a school. You have to create these social spaces as part of your design. So yeah, again another view of this school, beautifully done. Yeah, so that's BV Doshi. We'll cut to Art Design Media School. Okay, so now the new economies are looking at design as something which will make a difference to their own country. So lot of places adopted this. So to cut the story short, okay, so in the late 90s, UK decided that the design schools in the UK will become an entity which gets supported by the government if they perform well. Okay, so there's an audit which is done, and the UK also promoted design in a very big way. Okay, so they had a council for design, okay, which looked after the needs of design, and they promoted the schools. Okay, and they defined different rates for students coming from abroad, students who are not citizens of UK, and students who are citizens of UK. So they had these three rates, as admission fees, and that's how they kind of looked at design in a very business term, and that's how it happened in the UK. And of course, that model got replicated in terms of the business model by, Singapore, by Hong Kong, by Australia. Yeah, so this kind of spread around to the Asian countries, if you look at it. Okay, so this is the design school at NTU in Singapore. It's probably the most iconic building in the whole campus. Uh, in fact, the green lawns goes up the school. It's enveloped by this green lawns. Okay. It has product design, communication design, interaction design, and filmmaking. And you can do masters through research. Recently, they've also have started the PhD program. This is how it looks at night. Yeah, this is the inner space between the two arches. Okay, all the studios, faculty rooms, okay, classrooms, all of them are housed in this space. Again, beautifully done. Okay, iconic building. Okay, so this is how it is in Hong Kong. Okay, so China wanted to, promote and needs design in a very big way. You all know that China enabled over 1,000 schools overnight to become design schools. Okay, so there are about 1,200 design schools in China now. Okay, and Hong Kong was a center of, at the attention of the whole world. So they kind of revamped the good old, Hong Kong Polytechnic with a iconic building by the architect Zaha Hadid. Okay, called it as the Innovation Tower with lecture halls, studio spaces, workshops, exhibition spaces, and communal spaces. Yeah, so this is a shot from inside the classrooms in the Hong Kong Polytechnic. You can see that. Okay, this is again a collaborative class happening out there. Yeah, some views from the Hong Kong Polytechnic. Okay, of course, there's another school, Institute of Design, also in Hong Kong. You can see this building. It's a very tall building. You can see by the size of the bus, right? And housed in this, again, architecture, communication design, fashion design. So this is from inside the library. a shot from the library. Yeah, this is how the building looks. Okay, the interesting structures. This is in Vietnam, designs called nature and building interwoven together to create these spaces. Uh, Again, interesting, right? That's how these places are. This is a shot from inside the school. Okay, so some takeaways. Okay, one is you saw that you want to create spaces which are social, which will help in working towards design, getting inspired from the nature outside. So can you integrate the outside with the inside? So that is one question. Okay, and yeah, you can have graphics around the building. Okay, so the building itself becomes visible from far. Okay, the entrance and installations will make a big difference to the schools itself. So space is something which is very, very important. Okay, and we'll come to the design school which started first in India, 1961, the National Institute of Design. Okay, Gautam and Gira Sarabhai. Gira Sarabhai just, passed away last week. Okay, very instrumental in, making the school happen. Of course, it had the blessings of our first Prime Minister, Nehru. Okay, and yeah, this is again beautiful building, flexible building, which you can put it together for exhibitions or classrooms or offices. Okay. Yeah, you can see that same space has been converted into a exhibition space. Okay, and of course, NID has had many, world-renowned people coming to NID, being with them for a certain time. Okay, and then kind of influencing their decision-making process and learning from each other. Okay, so this is how NID got started. And of course, NID was based on a report by Ray and Charles Eames, okay, which is a seminal report. It's called the India Report. Okay, it's there on the web for you to have a look at it. Okay, and they were invited again by our first Prime Minister to come and see what is the best for a country like India. And when they came here, they realized that India has so much of crafts and culture, tradition interwoven as fabric into everyday activities. So if you ever start a design program somewhere, it has to integrate these things into the program. Okay, you can question how much of this is actually did get implemented or integrated into our country's design programs. But yes, if you go to NIT or you come to IDC, which was the first two schools, you'll find that so much of projects were done from a social point of view, with a concern for people uh, in these schools. Okay, so that's the India report from Brian Charles Eames. Okay, and yeah, it was based on that report. There were influences from both from Bauhaus and Wool in starting the UG and foundation programs. So if you look at it, the foundation program kind of design skills, they have full first year of foundation. That foundation branches into specializations and continues up to the third year. They have some inputs into design theory and humanities, followed by lots of projects time. Okay. So another design school which came up in India, 1969, that's the IDC. So envisions a holistic design education that shapes the students into responsibly contribute to the. This statement is very, very important because it's a very social statement, unmet needs of the society. Yeah, so you should be able to identify what are the contextually, what are the current needs of the society, and be able to, find solutions for these kind of situations. Okay, IDC also had very many, people from all over the world coming in and having discussions. There was a very big connect to Ulm School because the first person who conceived of IDC was from Ulm, Professor Nadkarni. Okay, so we had influence from that. That's Professor Nadkarni here. Okay, you're both a communication and a product designer, founder of IDC. Ulm has been my biggest influence, purity, precision, details. That's something which we brought back from Germany. Okay, so, when we were students here, we were taught design process, thinking as part of the curriculum. Okay, so I'm talking way back in 1970s. Okay, so this is how the structure is. Okay, skill courses, which diminish as you go up. Okay, a lot of theory. IDC, you get a full dose of theory into, research methods, design process methods, okay, semiotics, yeah, so on and so forth. Okay, marketing, okay, and yeah, that's how it is. And when we had a chance to start the BDES program, what we decided was that we looked at context. Okay, the needs of the society was somebody who knows more than one's kids. Okay, who is a graphic designer at the same time he knows a bit of product designer, a bit of animation designer. So this was a felt need from the society. So how do we integrate this into the program? That's how the BDES program was interwoven into. So in the first 4 years, they actually don't specialize. They learn all the disciplines. Okay, and a bit of specialization. They do it when they go to the fifth year. So in fact, they get a BDES, and if they do the fifth year, they get an MDES also. So again, a very unique program thought typically from the needs of our own country. It's not an adopted model from anywhere. So if you look at it, first year is discovery and explorations, second year creativity and problem solving, third year skills and electives. You look at options. Fourth year is basically apply what you learned and try to implement it. And fifth year, if you go, it's depth and specialization. And this is at a glance of the courses that you have for the BDES. You can see the top ones are all skill courses where you acquire different skills in different subjects. Then you have the blue ones, which are the theory subjects, and the green ones are the humanities. They consistently have humanities, going up to humanities, sociology, psychology, philosophy and literature, music, cinema, and theater. Okay, so that's very, very essential, okay, to have a holistic viewpoint of the society itself. So if broadly, if you look at it, there are three models of design schools. Okay, so you have the US model, uh, which we saw, in some of the examples, the Art Center School of Design. Okay, and you have the European model and you have the Asian model. Okay, the US model, for example, is very industry oriented. Okay, and it trains students in a lot of skills. Yeah, the European model is suited to students who have worked for a while and coming and learning. So there is a very flexible system they offer. You mostly people do it part time. They have flexible hours in trying to attend these classes. They are not spread over the whole day. They are in modules of 3 hours or at the most 4 hours, making it very convenient for students who are working to take a day off and come and attend the college. That's how the European model is. Where the Asian model is typically, you straight away go to college after your school. Okay, and so many of our schools, we do it on a weekly basis. Okay, a lot of problem solving is very contextual from the surroundings. Yeah, so this is how the model of three different schools. It's nice that now each one has actually be sure that I'm actually not imitating somebody else's model, but I'm trying to create my own space out here. Okay. So I'm going to summarize our design learning post-independence. Of course, the schools like BHU are very old schools. Their emphasis was on arts and crafts. Okay, and then it became commercial art. So we still have these very good schools. They're spread all across the country. Okay, so you have schools which they call it by the name of commercial art. I'm sure that will get changed into design at some point of time. Okay, and graphic and communication design came with NID and IDC, industrial design. Industrial design was even the name for Industrial Design Center. Okay, textile fashion design came in the 80s. Animation and interaction design came in late 90s. Okay, so this is how the disciplines evolved. Okay, it started, of course, with the art schools. They are very old. Some of them are almost 200 years old now. NID was the first post-independence design school, followed by IDC. The IDC model was adopted by many other IITs. So you'll have the postgraduate program and you'll see it at the other IITs. NIFT came in, as I said, 80s. And then the independent private schools started coming in. Okay, Shrishti came up in Bangalore. IIT Guwahati also had a full-fledged design school. Symbiosis is the next private design school to come with the Institute of Design in Pune. And of course, now you look at it, there are hundreds of schools. You know, the schools have become many of them, and the design is now kind of accepted by our society as an option for a student, right? So there is at least awareness of that, and many other institutions are adopting design. So almost around 50 to 100 schools are coming up every year. Okay, in terms of how did they practice design, uh, till even after about 30 years after independence, almost till I think 19 late the 80s, advertising agents was the only place design happened. You know, they even looked after product design. Okay, because advertising agent space is where the intervening agency between the industry and the market. So that was the only means of actually interacting with the industry. I mean, almost no industry had as a design office. Okay, so it was only rooted through this. Of course, when the country opened up its economy, okay, and industry started having their own design office, the whole thing changed. This transformation happened after the 90s, and suddenly design firms got their routings. Okay, they started getting work. Okay, so from then on, it's almost like no stopping them, you know. So if you look at the bigger picture, India produces almost 1 million engineers pass out every year. 40 to 50,000 architects produce. Okay, design is quite small compared to that. Okay, 10,000 design graduates out of 150 institutes. Of course, the art schools are still, over there. So they produce around 2,500 art students. Okay, but very, very interesting factor is this, that in India, through informal means, people study design. They go into the DTP industry, they go into the jewelry industry, they go into the animation, in-betweening industry, and don't have an accurate number, but it seems to be almost 1 million plus is getting trained in the design skills in our country. Okay, so one big question you can ask is that in the context of India, especially for social design, how do you enable these people? Okay, what kind of incentives or schemes that you have to actually enable them into from being informal to formal, from being less skills to more skills. So that's a big question. Okay, and it probably needs good thinking and answers for that. The same is the case with 30 million plus, again, very highly gifted craftsmen. If you look at the immediate family who also participates in this, then that figure becomes 300 million. Okay, people involved in doing some crafts or the other. Fortunately, I'm not going to go into that for so many reasons. They remained as craftsmen. Okay, so uh, this is something which we need to think a lot, and also we act on this. How do we actually preserve these craftsmen, because they have these very high skills? Okay, so can the design community intervene and continue the craftsmanship, okay, a tradition in our country? Okay, so that's again a very, very big question that we need to solve. But the good thing is about there are so many people who are actually now designers, who are involved in actually interacting with craftsmen, working with them, okay, and producing objects which have the craftsmanship in them. Okay, so if you look at what is the road ahead, we have to look back to see the road ahead in some sense, right? Okay, so if you look at very long time back, Dr. Ajanta's talks will come into significance here. Human strength was if you could actually have enough to eat and if you can fight, right? That's how we started. So you learned how to cultivate. You also built weapons so that you can protect yourself or you go and conquer somebody else. Okay, so this is human strength was at a premium. Okay, then it went to, once that became settled to a certain extent, okay, the next focus came on human skills. That means that places which could make arts and crafts, this is what was 500 years back in China and India, right? Human skills were profound. People had to come to these countries to get, objects which were made skillfully, right? So human skills was at a premium. Okay, and of course, with developments in science and technology came industrialization and also thinking, right? Human knowledge became very, very important factor. Yeah, so we are going through this phase of the information age. Okay, what would be the next one? Okay, it looks like everything points towards human creativity and ingenuity. Okay, human was creative all the time, but I think at no point then now is this skill more required, right? And it looks like we'll go through, just like we went through an information age, we'll go through a creative phase. And if you look at what is so important for creativity, innovation, entrepreneurship, building your own setups, yeah, finding problems and trying to solve that, and making it useful to a larger community. Okay, with that, I think I'm coming to the close of my talk. Okay, so this is something which a student of mine said when we had called him to talk at our school. He said that, I learned so many things, but if you ask me, he came from an engineering background. He came and did communication design at IDC. And yeah, he's a famous filmmaker now and an activist also. He said that if I have to put it in a nutshell, okay, the most relevant was creativity. Okay, I realized my potentials as a creative person or a human being. I also became very sensitive to aesthetics, so I could make judgments to see which is, better. Okay, more than all that, he says that the kind of freedom that I got after doing the program, in making choices and seeing the world with the freedom behind, inside me, nothing like that, So I think that's a great takeaway from a design school, from an alumni. Okay, with that, I'll say thanks to all of you. That's it from me. Hope you got a good,
Thank you.
yeah. Hope you got a,
Thank you. Yes,
yeah.
yes, sir, sir. Thank you very much for this valuable input and information. provided by you through the worldwide your experience and the experiments and other things, examples also. The forum is open for the questions. If participants have any questions, then I'm requesting to please ask. Still, sir, I checked through the chat box, and sir, there is one question by the Ankit Mathur. What is the similar version of freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior in Indian context?
Yeah, we don't call that. This is a typically American term. Okay. Yeah, we don't have it. We normally call them as at the most juniors and seniors. You know, if it's a master's program, it's typically 2 years. But the 4 year program, you normally call them as first years, second years, third years, and fourth years. This is the most common term in India. We don't have this freshman and sophomore. We don't use it here. Yeah, for sure.
Sir, may I have a question, please?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, please ask,
Yes.
please.
Sir, if there has someone who has not the technical knowledge, not the through education of the design school or something else, but they have skill and they have use and handling the object or the things very carefully. Should we get them a chance for any technical training or others to provide them the facilities?
Yes, ma'am. I think you've actually hit upon a very important need in our country. I showed the slide where there are almost 1 million people who, they go to a computer school and they learn, let's say, Photoshop or Illustrator. Okay, and they get adopted into a DTP operators or even publishing industry.
Yes,
Okay,
and
they,
sir,
they have the skills to do the work, but they don't have the thinking behind to creatively applied. Okay,
yes,
that learn it. Now of course the internet has become a great place to learn things. Either you can do on that, there are many, free and open courses that you can take. Even in India, for example, the Swayam platform is a great platform, right? And of course, already there are design courses being offered on the Swayam platform. Okay, so I think, one has the skill sets. He has to improve that skill sets by awareness programs and all that. Okay. And I think it's very important that they go through this, then they can become as good as anybody else. There's absolutely no need that you actually have to go through a formal education. Yeah, and
sir,
also, all right, yeah.
yes, sir. Sir, जैसे SAFT and NIT is nearby me, so I am visit lots of time, and my students also pass out from NIT, and they are very much talented and topper in the NIT. But they are very enthusiastic, and they actually ये लोग अच्छे से लर्न करने के लिए जो टेक्निक है ना, तो लोकल लोग को इन्वॉल्व करते हैं ये लर्न करने। तो हम भी जा सकते हैं और जाके ये सेफ्ट में भी कभी भी किसी क्लासरूम में आप जा सकते हैं और उनका एक्सपेरिमेंट हम देख सकते हैं। ये बहुत अच्छा है। और इवन शांति निकेतन ऑल्सो आई विजिट मेनी टाइम्स, तो वहाँ पर भी ऐसे ही है कि खेलते-खेलते लर्न करो, और वो टेक्निक बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग। थैंक यू सर,
Yeah,
थैंक यू कि
yeah.
आप इतने अच्छे से इसको एक्सप्लेन किया कि मुझे जितना डाउट था वो बहुत अच्छे से मेरा क्लियर हो गया। थैंक यू सर।
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
sir. Thank you, sir.
Any other question from the side of participants? If I one, no, sir, still not have any questions, sir.
Sir, this is Ankit Mathur. One question from my side is that the courses and the curriculum that you shown about the design school in Mumbai, which you are running currently,
Right.
is it important to have a very technical kind of a background to enroll in them?
No, no. So if you're talking about the bachelor's program, it is for school students. They can come from any background. It's open.
No, I was wondering about the master's one that you showed.
Your master's one, see, we build on the native skills. See, if you come from an engineering background, you can use that. If you come from an art background, you can use that skills, right? And we are actually, teaching them skills of design. which can be applied if you have any background. So it's technology also, you can learn enough of technology, you already know so much of technology. Okay, so it's not necessary to have that. Of course, what we do is that if you're becoming a product designer, you need to go through courses on materials and processes. Okay, yeah, that's very important, right? Because you're going to be making use of materials. If you're a communication designer, you should know, information about printing technologies, about digital, publications. You should have awareness about, digital spaces, like how to put it up on the web or how it comes out on this one. But these are all learnable. It's nothing, so detailed that you need to go into it. So that's how the program is conceived. It's meant for everybody.
Sir,
Thank you.
सर ये मुझे एक क्वेश्चन है कि आपको नहीं लगता कि लैंग्वेज इज वन ऑफ द बैरियर ऑफ इंडियन कल्चर, दैट्स वाई हम लोग जो डाउन लेवल में काम करने वाले हैं उनके साथ इतना कनेक्टेड नहीं हो पाते, जैसे चाइना में है वो इजीली वो एडप्ट करके और समझ जाते हैं, और वो जो थियोरी और वो जो है वो सारे टर्म्स इजी वो अपने लैंग्वेज में पढ़ते हैं.
नहीं, we all speak in so many languages. You see, we look at it as an advantage, no? See, typically an Indian will speak about 4 languages, Which other society naturally you pick up 4 languages? And now you can translate it also, right? If you take up any of these YM programs, you can listen to it in the language of your choice. Many of them are getting translated and converted. I think soon we'll have technology very nicely to do it. It's not a constraint. We should not look at it as a constraint, but I think it's an advantage that we have, So, and of course, you can always, translate and teach it, And we've had students who are not very good in, the medium of instruction at the graduate level is in English, but there are many students who don't know good English. So you speak in Hindi or, language which is known to them, they've all done well. So I think we should not look at it as a barrier, but probably as an advantage in the long run.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, respected Professor Ravi Poovaih, sir.
Thank you.
As you all are aware that this is Fundamental of Social Design, a 3-month part-time certificate course under the Spark project of Ministry of Education, Government of India. In Department of Applied Art, Faculty of Visual Art, Banaras Hindu University, in association with Maryland Institute, College of Art, Baltimore, MICA, and Michigan State University, Michigan. Now, thank you, sir, and thank you all of the participants for your valuable presence and patience. We will again meet on Monday, same time. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much, Manish.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Bye.